We're all set, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. And I see Councilman Goncalves and Councilman Anthony have also joined us. Thank you. Tina, do we have folks in the audience as well?
We do. I'm going to go by order of receipt, if that's okay with you.
Great, okay, thanks. I'll get the meeting started and then we'll go from there. Perfect. Well, I want to welcome everyone to our final ward boundaries public hearing. This is the 5th public hearing today, Wednesday, March 2nd. This is a completely virtual hearing, and I want to thank everyone for joining us. From our committee, we have Councilman Narducci, we have Councilor Miller, and we have Councilor Harris. And we also have Member Freeman with us. We have our consultants, Kimball Brace and Ryan Taylor, who have been working with us to draw the boundaries. I'd also like to recognize that we have Sean Bouchard from the council office, as well as Councilors Taylor, Anthony, and Goncalves. Thank you all for joining us this evening, and welcome to everyone in the audience. We have had really great public feedback over the past 5 weeks, and I just want to thank everyone who has come before us in prior weeks, as well as those who are going to be before us this evening. It's really critical that we have your feedback and your voice as we draw these new lines. The committee has had lots of things that we have to weigh. We have the 6 criteria that are in our charter, as well as different values that we all brought to the table and put in a values document when we were all working together over the past year. And I think that the 4 maps that were first presented on Monday, just this past week, really reflect all of the different things that we heard, and also all of those various ideals that we need to bring together. Do any of my fellow committee members have anything that they would like to add at this time?
I would just like to send out a special thanks to yourself, Jessica, and Member Freeman for volunteering to do this process. And again, along with all my colleagues that have been involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you very much. Ryan, I wanted to ask if you had anything else you wanted to add at this time about the maps that we presented on Monday.
I do. We have, just want to make clear to the committee and the attendees, we have been noting all the testimony that we've received, both at the Da Vinci Center and submitted to the committee in writing. We are fully in plan of presenting some revisions to the plans to the committee on next week that do incorporate what we've been hearing. So please feel free to continue to try and get in touch either tonight or through testimony, and we will receive it, and we will be looking at trying to improve the proposals that we have submitted on last week. And we hope forward that you will be pleasantly surprised at the updates to come.
Great, thank you, Ryan. I know we have 13 people who have signed up to speak tonight, so I wanted to move quickly into the public testimony portion. But again, I just want to ask if any of the committee members have anything they'd like to add. It seems like Councilor Miller, I see you, and Councilor Harris's hands raised. You can go
Thank
first,
you,
Councilmember.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Yeah, I do want to echo my thanks of the folks who have come out to testify. And all of the testimony we've received online and written, it's really informed the process and informed the discussions in the committee. And so I thank everyone for being here tonight as well. I also just want to share that this is the first time that we have, as Providence has been doing redistricting, that we have someone who is chairing and also another member who are not elected officials. And I think, obviously I wasn't on the council the last time we went through redistricting, but I have to say, like, being able to provide that bridge to the community directly has been so powerful and so helpful. And I just want to thank both of you again for helping play that role and for being willing to spend your time and your evenings with us over the last several months, and really helping to build trust in this process with us and with the residents. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Chair. I just want to add on with my colleagues. We cannot appreciate we cannot express how much we appreciate this process and what it has been. A lot of work have been put into it. We know that we have had, this is our 5th public hearing, but we know that there have been opportunities for people to learn more even before these hearings started. So I know you have been working very, very hard, both you and committee member Freeman as well. You've been working very hard, and I just want to echo what my colleagues have already said. We really appreciate everything that has been done, as far as transparency and doing as best we can to make sure we're really capturing everyone's voice. So I appreciate that. I really do. That's what I was coming into the process for, and I think I have received that, and my colleagues too, as I hear them speak as well. So thank you again. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank our policy people, and I want to thank all the folks that's connected to this. I want to thank my other council colleagues who's also, very much connected. So yes, this is really great. I do feel good about it. I know it's been fast and people don't understand, but they don't understand the work that has also fastly been put into it. And thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we all have something to be really proud of. We've worked really hard to ensure that we are being transparent and we are being forthright with the community, and we're really listening and valuing the opinions that we hear. And I know I definitely do think we see that reflected in the maps, and I think we see that reflected in how we've all worked together, and I'm really appreciative of everyone's time and energy. So thank you. I think with that, I'd like to move into public testimony unless anything else. Great. Okay. Madam Clerk, can you start that process, please?
Yes. So the first person I'm going to be unmuting is Doug Victor. Doug, floor is yours.
Hello.
Please state your name for the record.
Yes, I will. My name is Doug Victor, and I live in the Elmwood neighborhood. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. What a marathon. And it's been really interesting to be engaged over the processes of the public comment period. And I've learned a lot. And so I thank you for that. It's kind of it's a ward redistricting 101 course for anybody who wants it. And anyway, so with that said, I would like to, I feel as if my requests for considering keeping the whole Elmwood neighborhood and the whole South Providence neighborhood, although South Providence can really speak for itself together, has kind of had quite a ripple effect. And I just want to be very clear that my intention in asking that was to right some perceived historical wrongs in an equitable process that is fair to all neighborhoods, that is equitable to all neighborhoods. I just want to have that on record, and I don't want to be kind of known as the troublemaker, but I think I'm the one who kind of dropped the pebble into the water. So there it is. And I don't think it's necessarily the end of the conversation about wards. I understand at the same time the city charter is being reviewed, and the constraints of time are just what this committee is up against. So I guess I have a couple questions. Is the ward committee making a recommendation to city council that city council will either approve or reject, or city council has the ability to insert different motions to alter the recommendation that you made? So just a process question moving forward, I think would be really helpful. Will there be in your report, I'm not quite sure the format of that to city council, will there be like an overview, bulleted points of what people have brought up in public comment, that so it's just not in the minutes of the committee, but it is put up front to city council so that city council can really see in front of them as they're thinking about this, what the points were that were brought up by the public moving forward. I ask that because I feel like it's not the end of the conversation. I wonder too, if this committee can make recommendations to the city council coming out of what you've learned from the public process. One thing might be that ward, this needs deeper discussion in which ways. So that's, I may have some ideas about that, but so there a comment and a few questions in there. Sorry to take so long.
Thank you, Doug. The answer is to the first question is we recommend a map to council, but then council will receive its testimony, its own public hearing on March 28th. And I do believe that there is the opportunity for council to further refine the boundaries, and then they will vote on a map twice. The second question, yes, it is my intention to try to capture much of what we heard and add that to the report. Madam Clerk, the next speaker, please.
So the next speaker that registered is Marissa Scanavino. Are you in attendance, Marissa? I don't see you. If you're under a different name, could you raise your hand? I will move on from her and check back when we're done.
Yes.
Next speaker I have is Kara Orr. Kara, are you here? I don't see you. You under a different name, please raise your hand. I will move on. Morgan Leonard. Please raise your hand if you're here. We'll move on. Yvette Sullivan. If you are here, please raise your hand. Matt Loveland, I am going to unmute you, and the floor is yours. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Matt Loveland. I live in Smith Hill, Ward 12. First off, just want to thank everyone on the committee for taking the time to hear me and everyone within this community, listen to our thoughts, our opinions, our concerns. Very appreciative of that. So from having heard from everyone else within the community, it seems apparent that most people want to keep the neighborhoods together. And that's the point of redrawing these lines, to keep our communities, our neighborhoods together. But I think another thing we need to take note of is identifying and recognizing the communities and areas that are growing and emerging within Providence. And so, I mean, for me, this process is more about how do we draw the lines so that we can get ahead of these changes, and what areas are growing at a different pace than the rest of the city. And I think that area is right north of Federal Hill, between Kinsley Avenue and Harris Avenue. There's Farm Fresh, there's a steel yard, there's new development going in place. There's a 353 unit luxury apartment complex that's approved on 2 Harris Avenue. And there's more development soon to come. And I think this area in particular is going to be a hot spot for new business and new development over the next 10 years. And my position is that we give this area to Smith Hill and Ward 12 to lead the way, not to Federal Hill and to the West End. And I think the benefit to this is that there's a Smith Hill revitalization plan that's been put into motion 2 years ago, and it was held up due to COVID. But once that comes back into play, it would be good to interconnect that plan with this new neighborhood over the next 10 years. And in addition to that, Federal Hill and Ward 13 already have their own downtown. They have the Little Italy. They have the West End, which is comprised of many really good restaurants and cool bars and etc. But I think this is a moment in time to give a new area to Smith Hill and further diversify the urbanization of this community. So I urge you to vote for Proposal D or any variation of that. And I'll see my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Madam Clerk, the next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Miguel Sanchez. Miguel, please state your name for the record. The floor is yours.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for letting us all speak here. Well, my name is Miguel Sanchez. I live at 49 Ada Street. And being fully transparent with everyone here on this call, I am a Providence City Council candidate here in Ward 6. So first of all, I want to thank this committee for all their hard work. This really is hard work to do right. Especially under the circumstances that we're in. I believe that we should start talking to the Charter Review Committee to see how we can improve this committee and make it a little bit more independent away from the council. Thank you so much, Jess and Rachel. I've been following this process since early last year, when you started convening and having community input and engagement. I think you guys did a great job in being as fully transparent as possible. And I just want to thank you for that. With that being said, I do have a couple of comments / concerns. My first comment is in map C and D, staple Ward 6 businesses like the Poblanita, Pollo Rico, and the Chalkstone supermarket are no longer in the ward. I believe these businesses have been in the Ward 6 for the past few decades and should remain in the ward. Another concern that actually a neighbor brought up to me is that in map C, the Blessed Sacrament Church, it would be in Ward 6, and then the school that's a part of the church would be in Ward 12, I believe. And I believe that it's very important to have that school and church in the same ward. I next want to bring up what I believe is unintended consequence of 2 of the maps. A likely Ward 6 opponent of mine, Belen Flores of 25 Wealth Ave, is removed from the 6 wards under.
I'm sorry. Miguel, thank you. I'm going to have to interrupt you there. We have to disregard that our charter clearly states that we shall not consider where any incumbent or potential candidate lives. So regretfully, please do not give any address or name to us of anyone who is a potential candidate.
All right, thank you. So I just want to strongly state that I believe that anyone that has filed already should be remain in that ward. So I'll just leave it at that. And then the last thing I want to echo is what Councilman Correa brought up on Monday in bringing George A. West School and Park back to Ward 6. I believe it's very important to give the residents of Ward 6 a good school, a community school in the green space. So with that being said, I want to thank you, committee members, everyone from the community that has been engaged in this process, and thank you. And I look forward to seeing the next maps that come out.
Thank you, Miguel. The next speaker, please.
Next speaker I'm allowing to speak is Alfred Jeffries. You have the floor, sir. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, good evening. My name is Alfred Jeffries. And first of all, as others, I want to thank you for all your hard work. It only looks easy. I want to voice support for Map A, which keeps South Elmwood in its current Ward 8. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
The next speaker I have is Linda Perry. Linda, are you here? I will go back to her. Next speaker is Carlos Diaz. Carlos, are you in attendance? I will go back, Madam Chair. And the next person I have is Inango Lumumba Sango. I have unmuted you. If you could please state your name for the record.
Hello, Anango Lumumba Kasango. It's my name. I'm in Fox Point, and thank you all for your work. This is really exciting to see this process taking place in action, and I'm really excited to be a part of the process. I wondered if you could speak a little bit more about the process for, not necessarily the process, but the report that will be published and produced, like what format will that take? I know that there's a goal to include some commentary from the community, but how will that sort of be broken down, and what sections can we expect to see in the report? And I also would just like to voice my support for Map A. Thank you.
Thank you, Anango. We have not finalized what the report will look like. I'm just being honest. The committee has been hard at work holding these hearings and listening to public comment, and so that will come later. But my goal was to have at least a listing of the folks who showed up to testify. We have a record of all of that. And then to have some of the comments that we have captured from that. We also know that we have, everything has been recorded. So we have all of our Zoom recordings and YouTube recordings, as well as transcription from each public hearing. And I think Councilor Miller had a guess.
Yeah, I would just say, and we also know in the report, we're required by charter to kind of defend the choices that this committee makes. So we know the report will include, like, if we go in a certain direction over another, it'll include descriptions like that, why we made the decisions that we will make.
Thank you, Councilor. Madam Clerk, the next speaker, please.
Yes, the next speaker I am unmuting is Michelle Zabrowski. Michelle, please state your name and address for the record.
Michelle Zabrowski, Barstow Street, Ward 15.
Thank you.
One question that I do have is the redistricting just in Providence, or is it in every other town as well this year?
Redistricting is happening in every city and town, as well as at the state level and as well as at the federal level. So across the country, this is happening.
Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next speaker, please.
Next on the list is Javier Santos. Javier, are you in attendance? Madam Chair, I've gone through the list. I will go through one more time to see if anyone else has joined, and I'll start with the first person I had called out that wasn't in attendance. That would be Marissa Scanavino. Have you joined the meeting yet? Okay. Tara Orr. Morgan Leonard. Yvette Sullivan. Linda Perry. And Carlos Diaz. Madam Chair, I've gone through them twice and no one has raised their hand, and that is all that I have received for those that signed up to speak this evening.
Okay, I know that we did receive testimony via email and it was something that we were going to read in. Is that available?
Yes,
I also see that the person who who provided that testimony is in attendance. I'm not sure if he would like to speak or just have us read it, but why don't we start to read it and see if he raise it. Dave Talon, would you raise your hand if you're interested in speaking rather than having us read the testimony? All right, we should just read. Thank you.
So Mr. Talon wrote, "Hi, Jessica. I am not able to attend the ward redistricting committee tonight. Conflicts with an important meeting at my temple at the same time. But I would like to submit the following testimony and ask you read it into the record and to share it with the other members of the committee and with the consultant. I do not have their contact info, or I would do that myself. Proposed plans B, C, and D are all unacceptable to my neighborhood. The Reservoir Triangle, current precinct 2824. They all put us in a different ward from the South Elmwood neighborhood, current precinct 2871. Although separated by the railroad tracks, the Reservoir Triangle and South Elmwood are basically the same neighborhood, have a lot in common, and are very different from the rest of the South Side, wards 8, 9, 10, and 11. The only plan which keeps this area together is Plan A. Another good thing about Plan A is that it puts the only other similar area, current precinct 2872, around Roger Williams Park, together with the Triangle and South Elmwood, instead of in Ward 9 where it currently resides. The only concern I have with Plan A is that it does not address the request made to your committee by Doug Victor, community leader in the northern part of Elmwood. Doug and other Elmwood members have asked that all of Elmwood be in the same ward. Currently, the area bounded by Elmwood Avenue, Public Street, Broad Street, and Route 95 is in Ward 9. and the area bounded by Elmwood Avenue, Broad Street, and Public Street is in Ward 11. What I saw of the population figures given at the previous meeting, it looks like this request could be accommodated. Below is a copy of some of what I sent to you on December 5th, and which I believe you shared with the rest of the committee that explains some of this in more detail. Reservoir Triangle, where I am the Neighborhood Association President, and South Elmwood have a lot in common. They are predominantly single-family and owner-occupied. They are currently in the same ward, Ward 8, and the same state rep and state senate district. We would like to keep it that way to maximize our influence over whoever our elected officials are. So keep precincts 2824 and 2871 in Ward 8. The rest of our ward and districts include the West End, which is a very different neighborhood. I personally do not care who else my area is paired with, but I know that Councilman Jim Taylor, who lives in South Elmwood, would like to keep that West End, as he has done a lot of work in that area. We are fine with that. The only comments I have heard from anyone on the south side concerning redistricting are from some of the leaders in Elmwood, the area bounded by Elmwood Avenue, Broad Street, and Route 95. This area is now split between two wards, 9 and 11, divided by Public Street. State legislative districts, House 11 and Senate 2, do not currently divide this area, and the most recent proposals from the state would also keep this area together. Doug Victor, leader of the Elmwood Crime Watch, is in Ward 11 and would like all of Elmwood in the same ward, Ward 9, in order to maximize its influence. I believe that Karen Helinski, leader of the Elmwood Neighborhood Association, is in agreement with that. Precincts 2828 and 2830 could be moved from Ward 11 to Ward 9. Thank you for your consideration. Regards, David Talon.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I really appreciate you taking the time to read that into the record as requested. And thank you, Dave, for providing it. I know that we have some other folks in attendance that might want to provide testimony. Is there anyone from council who is interested? Oh, Councilor Miller?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do see Linda Perry joined. I know we were looking for her earlier.
Yes.
I see her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda, I have unmuted you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Linda Perry, and my address is 188 Alabama Avenue, Providence, 02905. I live in Washington Park. And my comments are that while I agree with Doug and others in the combining Elmwood and South Providence, I feel that we should obviously keep neighborhoods together with the least amount of juggling, should I say, of districts. Each council person has a long relationship with their constituents, and as it should be strengthened and not weakened. I actually had an opportunity to look at some of the maps, and they have a variety of issues, but I believe that the one that has the least amount of issues is the one that has the least amount of changes. Although I'd like to see the neighborhood stay intact, I prefer it not to be chopped up any more than it is. If that makes sense to you guys, I appreciate your time and effort here. There's so many issues that overlap that I believe that it should be more collaboration amongst the districts as well. People and counselors, even though you're not from this district, there should be more communication among the constituents and the council people. Not everybody has a weekly newsletter or a monthly newsletter. It's almost like you have to educate yourself as to what's going on. And the South Side has so many issues that instead of merging wards, I believe that there should be a collaboration amongst the wards to bring people closer together. And I don't know if that's possible, but that is my wish list.
Thank you, Linda. So I think it was map A then that you were referring to.
Yes, it was A.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Linda. I don't know. I don't see anyone else on the list. Is there anyone from council, any of our council or attendees who would, oh, yes, member
Jessica,
Freeman?
I was going to say, we let David Talon, or we read David Talon's letter in, and I see that Alex Ellis is one of the attendees, and I believe he sent in an email as well. Are we going to read that in, or should we invite him to speak?
I think we can invite Alex to speak, certainly.
Alex, I've unmuted you.
Hi, I'm dealing with a baby right now, but
that's okay.
You can read my email into the record if you'd like, or you can not for this meeting, and yeah, either way.
Okay.
Just saw you on there, Alex, and wanted to offer the same opportunity that we did to Dave Talon. I read your letter. Thanks very much for sending it.
Yes, I did send it to all of the committee. Thank you. Are there any city councilors who would like to come before us this evening? I don't see any hands. Is there anyone else from the audience who has not had the opportunity to speak who would like to? You can raise your hand and let us know. I don't see anyone. Committee members, am I forgetting anything? Is there anything else we need to cover in this public hearing this evening?
No, I think it's all covered.
Great. Okay. So I just want to let everyone know that what's going to happen now is that we are going to we're going to close the public hearing portion. And then we are going to have a committee meeting upon the rise of the hearing. And that committee meeting is to formally accept the 4 drafts proposals that we received. That's something that we must do as a process. So this is not a vote to vote on a map, a particular map. This is a vote to just say that we have received those 4 drafts formally and officially. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us at this public hearing, our final public hearing. We really value and appreciate everyone's input. You are welcome to stay for the committee meeting. It's also public. And that is on the same Zoom, right? So we don't have to leave. Yes. So we are staying right here, but we are closing one meeting and opening another. So with that, let's officially close the public hearing. Thank you all.
Just give us a moment, Madam Chair, to just get a new recording going.
Thank you.
And we are ready to begin.
Oh, so quick. Okay. I'd like to officially call this meeting of the Ward Boundaries Committee to order. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call, please? When you are ready, of course.
Chairman Jessica Sina,
Present.
Vice Chairman Nicolas Narducci,
Here.
Councilwoman Mary Kay Harris,
Present.
Councilor Rachel Miller,
Present.
Nicolas Freeman.
Present.
Have 5 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So welcome everyone, welcome back. We are gathered tonight to formally accept maps from Election Data Services. As part of this process, we were fortunate to be able to request 4 versions of draft proposals. And we officially received them. We unofficially received them, I should say, Monday. And tonight is the official acceptance of those maps.
Madam Chair, with that being said, can I make a motion to accept the 4 maps into the record?
Second, Madam Chair.
We say 4 draft maps, please.
Pardon me, 4 draft maps, please, into the record.
Second.
Great. Any comments on this motion? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Great. Madam Clerk, thank you. We have officially entered those 4 draft maps into the record.
Noted, Madam Chair.
Next, I know we wanted to have a short conversation just about these maps. The maps are currently labeled maps A through D. And A starts with the least change happening, and then all the way through D, which has the most change happening. And then varying through the maps are different levels of the various testimony and input and community feedback that we have heard based on keeping neighborhoods together, based on keeping schools and other recreation centers within neighborhoods, based on trying our best to not create pocket precincts that may only have a few voters in them. We have many different criteria that we must consider and weigh and balance when doing these things. And then we have many different values and things that we as a committee felt were important to maintain when we were redrawing these maps. And so I think we've had lots of lively debate and conversation about these things. So I just wanted to open it up to my fellow committee members to add their thoughts and comments right now about what we have seen so far. No? Yes, of course, Member Freeman.
Thanks. So, I mean, I really appreciated all of the public hearing testimony that we've gotten. It's been a wide range of thoughts and opinions, and a lot of people sharing a lot of information about their neighborhoods and their communities and where they interact with other parts of the city. So it's been very, very helpful. I guess I'd say that the overarching message that I've gotten is that no single one of these maps is perfect. We didn't think that any one of them was going to be perfect. We didn't expect that, you know, these 4 maps would come forward and we would just pick one of them. I think the goal of the testimony on Monday and today was to hear from people what they like about the different parts of these maps, what they don't like about it, and then we can try to, you know, maybe start from one of them and make some tweaks to try to, you know, get the adjustments that bring some of the good parts of another map into a map that maybe has a couple things that are lacking, and start going from there. So, with that said, I think that, we have a few parts of the city where there are sort of some difficulties just with the way the population balances out. And, so we discussed Benefit Street. There's a block that has a very large population. Whichever ward goes and gets that block becomes very unbalanced with other areas. So we have to be conscientious around that. But I think that, what I'd really like to do is start talking with Ryan about the way that maybe we could look at, whichever map we want to start with, and start making some tweaks around it based on some of the things that we've heard. In particular, I think that, we've heard from many people that it's important to bring a civic space back into Ward 6. That seems to be something just about everyone's agreed upon. We've also heard a lot of positive things about maps A and B. B brings a civic space back into Ward 6. A does not. Talking with Ryan this week, there are some ways to tweak A and try to do that. There are some ways to tweak B and go in another direction with it. I'd like to get us starting to think about not just picking A, B, C, or D, but how can we improve whichever one we want to start working from, and then bring the comments that we've heard about the good parts of another map into our final map.
Councilor Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Those are my thoughts exactly, that we now get to start from a framework and try and, I guess, troubleshoot, problem solve, right? Like, there are some things that we definitely need to change. I know, we've talked a lot in this committee about like how we define communities of interest. And so balancing the communities of interest conversation with the like legal requirements around deviation from ideal population is really the problem in front of us now, as we've heard the testimony to, and I think we can do that from a place of like, so as you were saying, right, like the getting a public space, civic space into Ward 6, we can do that easily, right? So like, let's start narrowing down from one of the maps. And it might be that we still, my guess would strongly be that we still have like one or two problems to solve when we meet again, to make the recommendation. But I think that we'll have less and less, right? Because I think there's some stuff that we can do just very easily. And we can see that reflected in a map. So yeah, I completely concur. Thank you.
And I would say I agree with that sentiment, that that these maps provide a great framework for us in which we can see the things that we know work, we know that are good, that reflect all the things that we have heard, and then little minor tweaks and improvements. Now that we have this idea and this picture, we know that it's not easy. We can see from these 4 maps that once you change something, it has a cause and effect. It has that ripple that Doug was talking about and that we've sort of alluded to over time. And so, but I think that there's a way to minimize that we can get a lot of what we want and what we need, while still having minimal disruptions. Councilor Miller.
Yeah, sorry to speak again. I just wanted to actually name, I would just say also, like, specific to Ward 13, which is the neighborhood I represent, it's gotten mentioned in public testimony because we have this population issue, right? Where Ward 12 is way too big, way too big. And Ward 13 needs to grow. And so I think as we move into the conversations, the next conversation, we really need to think about like, okay, so how can Ward 13 grow in the way that it needs to meet the population guidelines, and really not like do the least amount of harm to any of the other conversations that we've heard. And I think we have like hard choices to make around that, but I do think we have some choices, which is positive. Choices that don't necessarily break into other like largely residential neighborhoods. So I really appreciate the consultant for offering those various options of how that might work. And like it's reflected in all of the maps very differently, but they're all potential options.
yes, it's nice to see the options that we have right at the beginning, that we don't have to dream them up as we go, that we sort of have this image of what is possible and what has to happen if we make certain choices. Member Freeman.
Yeah, and echoing all that, to what Councilman Miller was saying a couple minutes ago, at the end of the day, we're going to come up with a map, and we know it's not going to please 100% of the people. We know there are some very difficult choices to be made in here, and we're going to do our best to make something that fits the needs of the entire city. But there are going to be some places we're going to make hard choices, and a line's going to be drawn in the sand, and there's going to be an argument one way or the other. In particular, there's one sort of smaller neighborhood that we've heard talked about the last couple meetings, where one person said it absolutely must be in this ward, and another person said it absolutely should be in another ward. We're not going to be able to accommodate both of those. It's not possible. But we're going to think intentionally about it and be serious about it and follow the values document that we put together and the charter requirements we have to try to piece together the city in a way that makes sense and keeps neighborhoods together as much as possible. There's going to be recognition that there's not 100% of things are going to be able to be accommodated because some of them are literally in conflict. But we're all trying our best and thinking about this, in a holistic way.
Councillor Harris or Councilman Narducci, do you have any thoughts about that? No pressure.
I'm just in agreement. But I think at the end of the day, number one, we have no choice but to come up with a solution. And number two, I think it's going to be relevantly easier than we actually think it's going to be. And I do agree. After being a councilman for 16 years and having a big family, you're never going to satisfy 100% of the people. There's always going to be somebody or a couple of people that are not going to be happy. But at the end of the day, we as a committee can honestly look in the mirror and say we did the best we could.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
I'm going to follow my colleagues and say, yes, I agree with everything that's been said so far. And I wanted to say that for me, in thinking, just the community bringing their concerns and interests to the table have been very helpful. As we start to think about things and think about neighborhoods and how people see their neighborhoods, whether it's in a historical perspective or whether it is an equitable perspective, people are looking at their neighborhoods and they know the things that they know that is valuable to them. And I think that's been very helpful. Although I agree with my colleagues, there's no way we can get everybody's interest to the table. But I think overall, we've heard some of the things repeated over and over because I've been documenting a lot of things. I think in my decisions, I'm looking at stuff that I've heard over and over and over again from the people who came out in the snow and in the rain, and they stood before us and said, we're putting a face to this conversation. You're not by yourself. We're going to help you think through this stuff. And to me, I appreciate that because I do know without that involvement and without that investment, it just be like what people think it is, just folks at the top making decisions. And we don't want that to be. I don't want it to be. And my colleagues seem like that's exactly what the committee, my colleagues on this committee, seems like that's what we all been driving home when we were all together and speaking. So I appreciate all that the people have done in conversation. It's a hard decision, but I believe people have said over and over and over again a lot of things that matters to them. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, committee members. I really appreciate your perspective on all of this. I think each of us brings to the table a lot of what we've heard from, in the counselor's case, from constituents and from folks that they have known for a long time who come out to meetings. Member Freeman brings his long history here and his work with the city here, and I do the same. So I thank everyone for that. I think we do have, as Councilor Miller puts it, at the end, coming Monday, which is our final meeting in which we will vote a map out of committee to the council. I think we will have just maybe one or two small challenges that we have to overcome at that point. And those will be sort of decision where we have to weigh what's in the best interest of residents and sort of what, how does that fit with all of the criteria that we have to follow. And so we might have an area that has historically had three counselors, and now maybe it will have just two. And so is that better for keeping a neighborhood together? Or is more representation, having 3 votes for neighbors rather than 2 votes for neighbors, is that better? Similarly, if we have an area that has 1 counselor represented because it's making something whole that hadn't been whole, or if it exists with 2, these are some choices that we have to make. Do we shift sort of ward centers east or west, meaning the population shifts and the neighborhood shifts? We know that for one of the maps with Ward 12, a shift that could be made makes that ward a plurality Latino ward, which we know is a growing population in the city and in the state. And does then that allow that ward to have representation that it seeks? These are things that we have to think about and balance and weigh. We know that one of the plans makes the southern part of the city, I believe it's Ward 11 or 10, Ryan, you'll have to remind me. 11, yeah, it makes Ward 11 20% or more African-American or Black ward. And so that might be important to weigh, and we know that we've heard that from the community. So I think that beyond the lines, we have to think about what it means to live in these areas and what it means to sort of group those people together, and what we're seeing in the numbers, because it's not really just about numbers and data, it's really about the people behind that data and that information, right? Like that's really what that's telling us. So those are some of the things that we'll be discussing Monday, but I think what we'll do is try to resolve some of those very easy things, as we say, sort of bringing a school and or a voting place back to areas that may not have them. We will listen to what the residents of South Providence are saying and thinking about what is the best for that region of the city. We have to think about what's best for Ward 12 as we make those choices, and then how that all affects the ward below it, Ward 13, and what's the best direction in which to move those lines. That, again, as my fellow committee members had said, states the least disruption, least harm, if we're using that terminology. Does anyone else have anything to add there from the committee?
How about a motion to adjourn?
Member Freeman, would you, or are you going to second, or did you want to?
I was just going to ask if, I have my notes, and I'm going to take some time to review things between now and Monday, and I'm sure we'll be talking with the consultants and things too. But I was, I don't know if right now is the right time or not. Just gotta leave it up to you as the chair. If we want to say we feel most comfortable working off of and starting to tweak one of these four maps, or if we should just do that in conversations between now and Monday, or how do you think that should go?
I'm willing to have a conversation about that if folks want to say, I don't think we need a vote, but we can certainly talk about
Sure.
it. Do you want to make a proposal, Member Freeman?
I feel like, especially based on the comments that we've.
Excuse me one quick second, Nick. I am definitely going to have to excuse myself from the meeting at this point in time. And I'll be speaking to most of you during the week. Thank you.
No conversations that violate the Open Meetings Act, please.
Of course.
And that includes a rolling quorum, which means you can't have one person talk to another who talks to another and who talks to another.
Understood. Thank you,
Yes.
Solicitor.
You're
Very
welcome.
much appreciate that reminder.
Yeah, so that's part of why I thought it might be useful to have this conversation while we're in the official meeting now, to avoid exactly those issues. I mean, I would say that based on the conversations that the testimony we've heard since these maps were unofficially released, so Monday's hearing and then today's, I've only heard a couple people say that map D was their preference. I don't remember hearing anyone point to map C. And one person in testimony today was very clearly making issue with maps B through C, or B through D. And a lot of people seem to be saying that map A with the least disruption is sort of where their preference is, though obviously people keep talking about tweaks. So I'm leaning towards saying that we should, go with maybe map A and start tweaking from there. I think that reflects what we've heard from a couple people in the South Elmwood neighborhood that talked about the importance of keeping that with the Reservoir Triangle area and defining those as being very similar communities. So I that's where, I mean, speaking only for myself, based on the testimony, and maybe other people have other thoughts, I would say we can start working off of A, making changes as we go to try to reflect some of the other comments we've gotten about some of the benefits of B through D.
Councilor Miller?
Yeah, I would say I also feel like I've heard a lot of folks speak to A. I also think I would say I agree with the caveat that there's like some larger and smaller problems we need to address on A. So I wouldn't want folks to leave this meeting thinking like, oh, we've got A and we're done, right? Like, because the smaller stuff, like getting a civic space into a ward, obviously we can do that, but there are some larger issues that I think we need to address in the South Side. I think we need to, again, I'll just keep saying it, we need to make sure that Ward 13 grows in a way that makes sense for the city. And that may or may not currently be reflected in map A. Like, I think that's a conversation we need to really have on Monday. And I think we could ask the consultant to give us some options off of map A to discuss on Monday. So like, if we're gonna winnow down the four choices we have to map A, again, I agree completely, Nick. I think that provides a good framework, that then we kind of need a new set of drafts off of A that helps solve some of the problems that we've heard for the last 5 meetings.
Agreed. That's exactly what I'm hoping for, is some variations on the theme of A, if that makes sense.
That'd be fantastic.
I'm going to let Ryan Taylor, our consultant, has his hand raised. Ryan, thank you. Oh, you're muted. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Would the committee welcome two that might stroke some conversations about the cause and effect and the ripple? I have taken a lot of notes. I believe I can release a kind of an improved version of map A, maybe in an improved version of like some of the good parts about C and D that we've been hearing about, that would maybe start a good conversation among the committee. Would the committee welcome that?
I'm sorry, could you repeat? I missed it.
I'm prepared to release probably 2 maps to the committee on Monday. And a version of A that brings in a lot of testimony, and maybe a mesh of C and D that has also brought in some other, the testimony has sometimes conflicted with each other. And so I do want to give credence to a lot of the testimony that we got that had some problems with map A. We've heard some tonight. I would like to propose some fixes that might show what we could do to accommodate their request also. Would the committee welcome maybe 2 maps to consider on Monday?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny to hear. I also have heard people say A and C or B and D as diametric opposites. So I'm very curious about how you would combine. I think you said C and D. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, no, A and B have a lot of similarities. You remember my B was my goal of trying to create less precincts for the city. And I can still try and do that while not running afoul of some of the criticisms that we heard from map B. And then C and D had some kind of reimaginings that have started some conversations, and I've heard them clearly. I'd like to keep the best parts of them if that's possible, because it fixes some of the things that people have asked us to consider changes from the status quo, and map C and D kind of did that. But I think the committee would probably welcome two maps that show the differences, and then would probably start a really good conversation. So I'm prepared to do that if I'm asked to.
Yes, I think we are. I think based on what we've heard here, we are thinking about a framework and then thinking about where we can make those changes, and having some options. We'll again start a conversation, and we will have choices to consider.
And I forgot to ask if there is a requested delivery date for those 2 maps for posting or for receiving.
Nick or Member Freeman?
I'd say as soon as possible, so we have some time to look at it and look at them and think about them, and maybe even email you back, Ryan, with what would happen if we move this census block. Yeah. Try some more variations on the 2 between now and next Monday. So
Okay.
As soon as you can. I don't want to put a crazy time pressure on you, but ASAP.
I would hope. I have a personal goal of probably Friday. For release, for consideration, for comment.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. That's helpful.
And again, if I may be obnoxious, emails should not include everybody else. So, Nick, you may individually email the consultant, and he can email you back individually. Do not CC each other, because then you are having a conversation on email. Okay? You can have all those conversations when you convene again.
Understood. Thank you.
Get all your questions answered by your consultants on an individual basis.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Solicitor. Councilor Miller, I think you had a question? No, okay. Councilor Harris, do you have any questions?
No, I'm just glad that we do have a couple more maps to, based on what we've heard even more, and a couple more maps. I agree that we have to start at a base. I like the idea of starting at A, and then trying to figure out what fits, what keeps us together, what makes sense. So yeah, I like the idea of those couple maps after, being presented.
Thank you, Councilor.
I also want to say that when I look at Ward 11 being the center of South Providence, that and that we have taken on population, that we have an opportunity to really give our input, as well from this district.
Okay. Is there anything else that the committee needs to cover this evening? Okay, hearing nothing else, can I have a motion to close the meeting, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
Great. All right. Not hearing any other conversation. All in favor of closing this meeting?
Aye.
Aye. And thank you so much to Madam Clerk and the clerk's office for your support through this process. Sincerely.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much,
Thank
consultants,
you.
clerk's office staff, council staff. Thank you for all your help.
Yep.
Yes, thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. Thank you, Madam Solicitor, for being here this evening. Bye, everyone.